Welcome to Room for All, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of inclusive employment and explore the power of creating opportunities for people with disabilities. I'm Andrea Comastri, CEO and co-founder of Hotel Etico, Australia's first not-for-profit social enterprise hotel.
And I am Saraya O'Connell, General Manager of Hotel Etico. Together, we'll be your hosts as we talk about the importance of breaking down barriers in the workplace. We will have a particular focus on hospitality and other customer-facing roles, and how businesses can lead the charge toward inclusion.
At Hotel Etico, we believe that everyone deserves the fair chance to succeed. And we've made it our mission to not only provide jobs, but to build meaningful careers for people with disabilities. On this podcast, we will be sharing success stories, best practice, and inspiring conversations with industry leaders from the hospitality sector, the disability sector, other social enterprises, philanthropy, and of course, our own trainees, graduates, and staff.
Whether you're a business owner, an advocate for inclusion, or someone curious about the future of work, this podcast is for you.
So come and join us at Hotel Etico, or as we call it, the Hotel California for the Heart, a place where once you have checked in, your heart will never leave.
So let's get started and open the doors for all.
Okay, we're rolling and we are in the giggly studio of Room for All. Welcome, everyone. I'm here with my co-host, Saraya O'Connell.
Hi everyone.
And with our special guest today, our very own Mariella Cuttonaro. Hi, Mariella.
Hi, everyone.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. In the middle of two giggling people.
To keep you on your toes.
Yes. Welcome. And today we're talking about a special project that Hotel Etico is running called Program Elevate. That is a program transitioning people with disability from supported employment to open employment. Mariella is running the program for us, but before we go and talk in detail about it, we just want to know a little bit more about Mariella. Who is Mariella?
Who is Mariella?
Good question. It is a good question.
Why is it a good question?
Because I like to know about people.
Do you want to know everything right from the start, or should I just...
Let's go from date. What's your first memory? No, I'm just joking.
First memory, no. Gosh, I actually remember being on the airplane. I come from, oh my God, there we go. There's first blip in number one. So, so my father is Italian. My mother is Armenian. I was born in England, lived there for about 4 years before immigrating over to Australia. Also pretty much born into a restaurant. So my father in England had his own restaurant, came to Australia, started off in a little pizza shop, and then further went on and had another restaurant, about 60, 70 seats, and then got into a 200-seat restaurant. So I pretty much have hospitality restaurants my whole life. My brother has a restaurant, my uncles have restaurants, my brother-in-laws have restaurants. Yeah, it's the family biz. So I also had my own cafe for about a couple of years, and then I decided to sell that, go overseas for a few months, and then when I came back, did a little bit of study here, there and everything, mainly in business. And started working back with my dad. I still kind of do help him out. He, in his ripe old age of 75, decided to open another restaurant up at Central Coast. Wow. 4 years later, he's still going strong up there. And wow. Yeah, so he's still got all the support. But so I decided to break away. It's a bit hard working in the family business. So you kind of don't get a regular paycheck. And it was kind of like, yeah, here you go. There's like $20, there's $30. Dad, I want to go out. Yeah, here's $100. So I got to a point where I needed to create my own path, and that's sort of how I landed in recruitment, or my first sort of experience within people services. I did that for about 3 years, met my husband, got married, had a child around the GFC, global financial crisis. So recruitment wasn't a really big industry.
So let's make babies.
Yeah, so let's make babies. Well, actually, yeah, she was a bit of a, what do you call it? She was a surprise. She was very unplanned. All three of mine are unplanned.
This is the best program I have ever done.
Anyway, yeah.
They're not listening, right?
No, they're not. They're not.
So you have 3 children.
I have 3 children. My eldest, she's 16. My middle, he's 13, going on 14, and then my youngest just is turning 12 tomorrow.
Ooh, happy birthday. Halloween baby.
Well, I was hoping for a Halloween baby. I went into labour at Halloween.
I could see that.
Minutes later, he was born. So he was born 12:45. So in my mind, I think, if it was Perth, it'd be a Halloween baby.
Okay.
But
Could always change that, surely.
I could, yeah, maybe take him over.
Yeah.
But so it was a GFC. So recruitment had quite a big hit, and I couldn't go back to full time working in Parramatta or in the city. Was kind of a dual role, being that I was a new mum. So they said, look, you've got to come back full time. I couldn't go back full time because I again had a young child. That's how my first experiences came into employment services. So I applied for a role with APM as an employment consultant. I thought it was like a recruitment consultant. Oh boy, was I wrong. So it was kind of like a deer in headlights going. It's like, this is going to be easy peasy. It's just picking up the phone and contacting employers and, just matching people. But when you're in employment services, you're generally dealing with a lot of challenges and barriers, and, people are on benefits, and in essence, a lot of them are kind of being forced to look for work. So let's just say there was a lot of abusive phone calls, a lot of, some angry clients coming in.
From the job seekers?
From the job seekers. And at the time, it was kind of sort of, it's an industry that wasn't very well known within other employers. So it wasn't a resource that employers kind of knew. They just thought it was like another recruitment
so
company.
disability employment wasn't really front of mind.
No, it wasn't. And, at first I'm thinking, oh, God, is this for me? And then I'm like, you know what? No, it is, because it sort of goes back to, when my dad, with him going through the restaurants, he was a very big advocate of hiring people with disabilities. So he actually got an award back in the early 2000s from the Prime Minister commending him on the way he's always open to hiring people with disabilities. And He had one gentleman that the only reason why he's not working with my dad is because my dad's gone up to Central Coast, was for like 20 years, and, a severe intellectual disability. He had another young lady that worked in our commercial laundry. We used to have a commercial laundry as well. And she had quite a severe intellectual disability, but, it took a lot of patience for my dad to train her up how to do it. But he was patient, and, she was with us for like 6-7 years until she went on and had her own baby. So my dad's always been an advocate, and I thought, I can stick this out. And I think that's where I realised that working with people with disabilities is something that I really enjoy doing. And then it's kind of an industry you kind of get sucked in and you can't leave. You can't leave.
Yeah.
There is the cold side of disability employment services, but again, it's
there's more good than bad, and exactly. I think that the bad outweighs the good in the public's view, and I think that that's something that we really strive to change. But it does, and that's everywhere. I mean, look at the reform at the moment. That the media about what changes are coming in with NDIS. There's so much good with NDIS but the media
doesn't make it into the news.
It doesn't make it into the news. No.
And I think so. And it's the small few bad organisations that are giving the bad name to the larger organisations. So
don't we know it?
I know. And I guess that's how I ended up here at Hotel Etico. I was in employment services in quite a senior position in my last role, and it got to the point where it felt like a monetary transaction, and that didn't really align with what I believe. And I thought I'd take a break and maybe try being a housewife. What is it? The Real Housewives of Wenty Falls, as I like to call it.
How'd that go for you? I've always envied a housewife, but then I also I don't think I could be a stay-at-home mum.
I commend any person that stays at home, because I don't know how they do it, because it's a lot harder than it looks.
I can't see you sitting at home.
It's not just sitting at home though. You're doing like so many other things.
Yeah, you wouldn't be sitting. Yeah, I know, but staying at home and interacting.
It was.
And so
I think there's power in saying that though. Like I don't think enough women actually admit that they just can't be a stay-at-home mum. I think there is power in that.
Yeah, definitely.
It's shamed. Like I get shamed all the time every time I walk into the school, but sure. I think, yeah.
I'm exactly the same. I couldn't. But anyway, it lasted about 6 weeks.
Nicely done. 6
So
weeks
your,
straight.
your
weeks,
kids in
like-
high school, I think all of them now? Yes.
No, well, my
Ones.
youngest is about to go to high school next
Okay.
year. So all three, it's one drop off now.
Right.
And yes.
So you
can't
had taken
wait.
a break or a short break and you were looking for something, or were you looking for a job when you
I
first came
actually
across us?
wasn't really looking. I mean, I was dabbling. I was starting to get impatient because, again, I'm not one to just stay at home. So I'm quite
still.
entrepreneurial. So I started thinking, okay, I could start this, I could start that. And then something popped up in my feed and I'm like, oh my God, I know this organisation. I remember them when they started up in 2020 and thinking, oh my God, they are so crazy starting
You're
in
not wrong.
COVID or just outside of COVID. But, I followed the story of Hotel Etico and I'm like, I really want to see what this place is about. And I applied for the tourism
Yeah, there was a job
navigator
going,
role.
right?
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
So-
And I actually read the
The
criteria, the
Put
instructions,
in
because
a
I remember
cover
applying
letter?
for a Seek and it's like, oh my God, they've actually asked me to apply through Monday. So I applied through Monday as well with the cover letter.
That was a subtle dig at me. Thank you. This is going to go on, I think, and be a theme in every podcast.
Absolutely. And so the job was for a pilot project that the Department of Social Services, Federal Department, was funding,
Yes.
called the Local Tourism Navigator.
It was a successful pilot.
Yeah, pilot, too short, 1
short,
year. You can't really do anything in a year that is significantly shifting the dial, but it was a good exercise. I think it was part of a bigger attempt by government to have different sort of changes to the way they do disability employment, and that was, I think, part of their research and the results and so on. But so tell us a little bit about the program. What was it? What does that mean?
So, like you mentioned, it was on the back of the Jobs and Skills Summit, so the Austrade and Department of Social Services. So they've realised that, again, after COVID, hospitality, tourism had a really, really big hit. And then, we're still having challenges with getting more and more people with disabilities into employment. So it was kind of like a natural thought process by, obviously, Austrade and DSS, acronym for Department of Social Services, to put two things together and then create this pilot program to see if it could work, because, hospitality was struggling or tourism was struggling, but we've got this untapped talent pool. How can we access that, and how can we get businesses to access those? It was about sort of linking the businesses to tools, resources, and educating them on how to hire, train, and retain people with disabilities.
So it wasn't necessarily to create anything new necessarily. It was about to help them navigate the existing
pretty much
structures, existing systems.
Exactly. And I think that's, there is so many resources out there that, no one really knows about. I'll put an example. Coming here to Hotel Etico, you didn't know about the workplace
Well, we knew
assessment.
about it. We just couldn't
Navigate
it. So
Or couldn't navigate. Well,
we literally it was months and months of trying to get it in, and luckily you have the expertise in that. We ended up paying for a lot of our workplace adjustments ourselves, which is the government do fund it. So, but it is hard to navigate. There are so many different things,
Exactly.
but there are so many resources out there.
And so it was working. So we were one of, I think, a dozen organizations around the country.
I think it was, it was 12.
And we were assigned the Blue Mountains of Western Sydney area. So it was working with small and medium enterprises.
Small to medium enterprises.
They did go up.
Yeah, it was a little
did,
bit flexible.
They made the numbers flexible. Initially, they cut it off at like 99, but then they became a bit more flexible with, if there's a business that their head office is in Sydney and they're here, is that classified? So they became a bit more flexible because of obviously the feedback with the organisations doing the pilot. We're saying that, we need to sort of broaden the scope in terms of the size and, to get more validated data again. And trying to get all this good data in 12 months is near impossible.
Yes.
Especially
We tried. We got a lot of data, but probably not as
well,
much as
we had an advantage, I suppose, versus other organizations because we were really already doing most of that work in a way. We had more of a focus on the training than on the employers, but we had relationships.
Yes.
We had in the mountains in Western Sydney, and so I think for us it was a good pilot to be involved in. But yeah, the problem with it is the length of it.
Yeah, 12 months really isn't.
I think we extracted the most out of it for the community and
being that, taking on someone with a disability, there needs time to do that training, the onboarding and, finding that right employer. And it can take beyond 12 months to know if that's going to be a meaningful, sustainable job. So, and I guess they've taken on that feedback, but, with the new DES employment services coming out, they were trialling so many different pilots to get prepared for that so they could model what the new service would be. So that's, And that's why I guess they were constrained to that time.
Yeah. And the main objective wasn't necessarily to employ people with disability as part of the pilot. It was about building the capacity of the industry. So,
which is really important.
Yeah, of course.
It's one of the biggest barriers.
And one of the problems is the size. So if you talk about micro enterprise, small enterprises, it's really hard for like a
husband and
mum
wife,
and dad, you know, like to up and go to training and learn things and learn that. And so you need to hold their hands quite a bit. But I think I remember being here when we were doing training sessions and we had pretty good response in terms of the various disabilities.
Yeah, we had to put on more and more.
Yeah. So that was quite successful. And then so that went pretty quick, 12 months. And then the project finished and you moved on. Probably.
Not for long.
That's right.
I've always been part of
Because
Hotel.
Stay away.
What's that song, the Hotel California?
That's our theme song.
It's not that song. It's the song of the podcast.
You literally can't say. You weren't gone for long.
Well, but the thing is that
even with her gone, she wasn't gone.
No, well, because she was very smart. She planted a big seed,
yes,
right?
You did.
So while you were here in your spare time, you were applying for grants left, right and centre. And so you spotted this grant opportunity with DSS again for the Structural Adjustment Fund, which is one of the bigger initiative of sort of trying to transform the disability employment sector. And you went for it. I think we sort of thought, it's a bit of a long shot.
You were just like, oh, yeah, we might get it. We might not get it. And we were just all so casual about it.
What happened in the end?
And then we won it.
Literally won it because we ended up being the organisation with the largest funding around the country.
Yeah, I think the total funding for round one was just over nearly $15 million.
Yeah.
And then we got
one of those.
of that.
Yes.
It was pretty good.
And not only, like it was about 70 organisations around the country. And so, I mean, we were sort of one of the largest one, which was scary because it put a lot of pressure now on us to deliver, but then
what is it that you sort of like you shoot then aim?
What is it? What's your motto?
What's the motto?
Ready, fire, aim. So we definitely did that, and now we're aiming.
We were up against some big players. Massive players within the disability employment space, and we're tiny.
But I think
my amazing writing skills.
It's interesting because when
it's
you
your
think
amazing program.
when you think of the department, so it's big, removed, it's in Canberra. They don't really see it. You feel it's transactional, but they actually listen because you mentioned the Jobs and Skills Summit. I was at the Jobs and Skills Summit. I was invited by Austrade and DSS. And I was one of the voices there, and they had told me that they had this program starting, the local tourism Navigator. They had a program in the making, and so I think the seed was planted there. They had been observing us, they had been watching us. That's why we got invited, and then it just one after the other, and so then we delivered results, and they keep watching us, and I think we were successful. And the application was really good. And
you did have amazing writing skills.
So that's and then so we knocked on your door again and said, "Hey, Mariella, how would you like to help us get it started?" And with also the idea that probably was going to be like a short term for you, and then employ someone else. And then we shortly realised why.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
You're enjoying it. You're enjoying it. So maybe we should talk about what actually the Structural Adjustment Fund is.
Yes.
So we spoke about it, I think, in the intro, but I can't remember if that was take one or take two. It's to transition people from supported employment into open employment within. Well, ours is the hospitality.
What
industry.
is supported employment? What is open employment?
Yeah.
What is it?
What is
what
it?
are they?
difference.
What's supported employment?
Like, no, in all seriousness, because some people don't know.
Well,
and
yeah,
the
some of our
names have
listeners
changed.
won't know what that means.
The
We
names
talk
have
about
changed.
even the concept of open employment. It's very industry based. So
We use a lot of acronyms too.
what's supported employment in a few words?
I guess it's where a person is working for less than the award wage.
With support from specialists
with support.
And normally it happens in Australian disability enterprises.
Generally,
Yes.
more the ADEs if you want to talk
Yeah,
acronyms.
yeah, which again for the less experience in the field is the old sheltered workshops that then became Australian Disability Enterprise, and I think there's a new name now or something.
And to put in perspective, we've got like around 16,000 people nationally that are working in supported employment within Australian Disability Enterprises.
And I think there wasn't a lot of talk of open employment. A lot of people, leaving school, there's not a lot of options for somebody with a disability. So, generally it's you go into supported employment.
Yeah, and it tends to
for
be
a long time.
a destination. That's right.
It is
tends
a
to be
destination.
where you go, you form your community, you have great time, you're sort of part of a community and you never want to leave because you're there. But yes, there are some distortion to the system whereby people can be paid less than the award wages because it's based on productivity and again, there's movement to change things, but it's a big, difficult thing to unravel because there's also some arguments which, have some merit about the fact that productivity is an element, and we talked about it in previous episodes, and that many people with disability will never be in a position to have employment in what is known as open employment, mainstream employment. So how do you transition the system from one to another? But
very difficult.
And then what goes with that is the concept of segregation, which again is another very
hot topic at the moment.
Controversial hot topic. So, working just with people with disability or working within a fully integrated setting. What we've created here is paying full award wages and not in a segregated environment where you work alongside people without a disability. So
that's, I guess, when you're looking at the one of the reasons why the Structural Adjustment Fund came about, it's because, when you're looking at that 16,000 people, there was some suggestions that you've got at least a third of those that want to go into open employment, but, the ADEs aren't equipped enough to be able to support them to transition from that ADE into open employment.
And so how are you going to do that? What's first of all, there's a number associated to it. Like we've put a target of 50 people.
Like we all do. Right? So we're aiming to
over 2 years.
It's over 2 years. So we're aiming to support 50 people into open employment setting.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that we'll definitely overshoot that number. But
can we touch wood? Because it's...
I don't like to fail. So
you definitely don't like
so
that.
the right
we
person
don't like to fail.
Yeah.
Failure is good in some areas, but I think that this
you learn from failures, but this is like no. There is no ifs and buts. It's like
we will do it.
Yeah. And so how are we going to do that? You can't just go there, open the door, pick a person up, dump them into an open employment. How are you going to do it?
You have to partner with the right people. Like you need a community. We've spoken about it in other episodes. You need a community around you. Yes, so I think that's going to be the biggest.
And I think that's something here in Australia we need to do better is collaborating more with other organisations. I think the way the system's built, it makes it too competitive. So no one wants to use another service. It's like, they're going to take my funding away or my
we found that a lot
away.
With the disability employment services when we started. It was competition, even though we are not a DES provider. But
we now work with
but that's because we're working with the right disability employment services.
So I think it's we need to get a community behind. So it's like identifying organisations that have the same values that really want to help people get into open employment, not hold them back, because there will always be organisations, the ADEs, they're going to be like, no, you're going to take my funding away. That I want them to stay here.
So really, I mean, the 50 people is important, but the bigger picture,
it's
in the same way as for Hotel Etico, the bigger picture is the employers and the community and not the trainees themselves, is working with other providers and helping them somehow to think differently and to work differently.
So it's equipping them with the tools that we have demonstrated here at Hotel Etico, so they can do it themselves. So it's almost like running sort of a couple of programs with them, give them the skills, give them the ability, so then they can, start transitioning other of their participants in their programs into open employment. So it's not necessarily that we'll be holding their hands for the whole 2 years.
No.
Might run one program. We find that they've got the right resources, so they should be able to run the programs.
So sort of we're a bit of a facilitator, rather than.
And the program itself. So the Hotel Etico program is obviously a 1-year live-in program. It's the program that we've created is very detailed. There is a curriculum. Like, you do need structure. What sort of skills are you focusing on in the program? So, like, what skills do you think are transferable to customer service, and what are the main, I would say, curriculum highlights that are in the program?
Yeah, so the program obviously is very similar to Hotel Etico. I mean, that's where
shortened.
It's a shortened version, so we don't have the independent living component part of the program.
So it's like community based. It's not
more of community
residential.
based. It's more it's about skills development. So we say phase 1 is the training and preparation, and in that training and preparation, they'll undertake a few workshops around sort of etiquette, communication, goal setting. And then we'll do some simulated workshops, and this is where they'll get skills within sort of the hospitality, tourism environments. And then we'll also look at doing the sort of the customer service administration side. So I like to keep it a little bit broad because not everyone wants to work in hospitality and tourism. So we want to be able to capture some candidates that might want to look at sort of other areas. And
they're very transferable skills.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then the phase 2. So, I mean, that phase 1 can go anywhere between sort of 3 months. It could go 6 months. It's very individual based.
Very.
So the whole goal of this program, it's going to be person centered. So it's about what the person wants. So we don't want to dictate to them what job they want. It's about what they want. We'll develop the goals, and then we'll monitor those goals over the course of them conducting the program or participating in the program. And phase 2 is the placement and support. So we find a placement after obviously they do the work experience or job shadowing and then the simulated workshops, and we'll make sure that they've got ample support in place. So it could be that if they're an NDIS participant, which majority of them will be, can they access their support network through their plan and so forth, so they can get support. We'll also obviously look at educating the employer, supporting the employer in that process of taking on that person with disability.
So that's very complementary to what we're already doing in our employment program, graduate program.
I think that's why we won. I honestly do. I really do. Like, I think, I read the submission numerous times, and there's a lot of words in that. Like, a government grant is not something to mess with. But it is very much the Hotel Etico program. And I think that shows in even just getting the grant, because
and so
what
we will
do
be
works.
tapping into our existing partners within
And
the
making new
tourism and
ones.
hospitality
And new
industry,
ones.
and then new ones, yes. And so that's really, really good.
Yeah, so I know like the current partners we have are predominantly within sort of the hotel, but, there's other parts of tourism and hospitality, transport could be part of that. I think at the
Absolutely.
ferries and all that stuff. So
Yes, absolutely.
I think it's going to be important that we tap into
all the ferries. That would be so cool.
so it's important that we tap into other partners, not just sort of that hotel.
We don't want to limit
because
our
I remember you saying when a few months ago that hospitality is quite broad, tourism's quite broad. You step out into a shop, that's considered tourism if it's
Of course.
you know what I mean.
Absolutely,
if you're a tourist and you go and have your haircut at a local hairdresser, absolutely. Everyone is involved in tourism, really. And so we called the program Elevate. Workshop.
Program
We workshopped
Elevate,
it for so long
worked out a
too.
few
I
things
don't know. What
anyway.
was the first one? I can't even remember. There was,
I don't know.
was it grow, work, succeed? Succeed.
Succeed,
Yeah,
Grow, work, succeed.
Yes, which has now become the subtitle.
Yeah, it is.
and
it's hard to pick a name for our program.
Yeah, and you can spend so much time on it. And then And it's a partnership program again. So you're
Yes.
already partnering with a number of organizations, particularly one. Who are you working with at the moment?
Yeah, so we've commenced our first program with a partner, or we're collaborating with Co-Hive Hub based in Alexandria. It's an amazing
It's a great program. They do great
organisation.
work. Yeah.
Then the main cohort are participants with autism. But, yeah, it's an amazing program.
It's a great space.
You walk in there and you just, feel at ease.
So in the spirit of partnership, we've also partnered with Torrens University.
Yes.
So what is their role in the program, or what have they done for us?
Well, Torrens University, they're specialists in the hospitality tourism game. We've partnered with them and they're developing our curriculum for the workshops. There's 12 in total. They're pretty much giving us the learning material, and then, once we get that material.
They're very collaborative.
Yes.
So, they've gone off our curriculum that we have and they've taken our feedback. And
So Torrens runs the Blue Mountains International Hotel Management School, and they've done a lot of work with us already. They've done a research project on our program here, and so
very thorough research program.
We'll probably have them over as guests in
Yeah,
future
let's
as
do it.
well.
And they'll be evaluating our program as well,
Yes.
because,
Yeah.
we want to make sure it's successful so we can demonstrate to the Department of Social Services that we are the best, we are innovative, and
right.
every other organisation needs to learn from us.
And so it's a two-year
Competitive
program.
much? You're so competitive.
It's a 2-year program. We're already about 4 or 5 months into it, time will
Time will
fly.
tell. It is flying already. Like,
yes.
it's flying.
It's really exciting because it's something new. It's something that it's almost like self-contained outside of Hotel Etico, but it takes a lot of what we already do. And
And if it works and you get your other hotel, you've got something, maybe you have the part where it's not a living component. You've got
Yes.
that. Yeah, so
there's
That's
so
sky's the
much.
limits.
There's so much that can come from it. Yes. What else?
Well, I want to go back. Can we go back? Although, I could talk about Hotel Etico all the time, but the disability employment space at the moment, like the changes that are coming in, where everybody is at with it. Do you want to talk a little bit about? I know you've been out of the game just a little bit, but you've seen it all. Like, you've seen transition after transition.
I guess, me, I'm fortunate that I've been in the industry for about 15 years within disability employment services, and it's changed, but it hasn't changed.
Yeah.
If it makes sense. So I think every time a new contract comes out, there is the goal of making it bigger and better, but then they learn from it and realise, okay, we've reverted back to kind of what the old contract was, and it becomes about the numbers and the revenue and the profit, and it loses sight of the individual. So the idea of the new contract, so actually it's a day. Yesterday was the cutoff for submitting the tender, so I think there's a lot of people sleeping probably for the next week,
that's
because
right.
it's
It's a big tender.
It's a huge tender, and I've been through the employment services tender, and they're massive. You think the one that I wrote was big? Imagine
it's
doing
massive.
this.
We've done a program together
we
about
just did
the
it.
tender itself, then decided not to necessarily go for it. And
I looked at it and I thought, no, it's too
And
much red tape.
It is a lot of red tape. And I mean, this is controversial, but I like the fact that, we do just have another government grant, but I like the fact that we don't have the red tape. We have the compliance of the NDA, absolutely, but we're a social enterprise and don't have necessarily the red tape.
It's good to have the freedom.
It's good to have the freedom to do what we do, because we can really invest in it.
Yeah.
And when you're so numbers focused and you're, 12 weeks.
When you've got to spend a lot of money to just make the numbers work rather than actually delivering the service. But with that said, DSS, thank you, keep it coming.
Yeah.
And look, I think, ultimately every time they do a design a contract, it is for the greater good. But then it gets to that point, because there is that red tape, and it gets to the point where the front line of DES providers tend to fill most of it because all of a sudden, they've got caseloads of 40, then it grows to 60 because, budget constraints, or they're not getting the referrals, the placements aren't coming, and then they're going to have to make revenue somehow. But I guess with the new contract, from what I hear, it is going to be a lot more person-centric, but they say that all the time. We'll see if it comes to fruition. The Centre of Excellence has recently gone to tender, and so obviously organisations have submitted their tender, so the DSS are reviewing that. And the whole idea of the Centre of Excellence is to capture all these good news stories, so there is that central point where DES providers or disability organisations can go to learn best practice so they can implement this. Again, it's about the organisation. How good is it going to be, or is it just some more funds that's just going to be put there and wasted?
I remember before I joined Hotel Etico literally losing my passion, and it wasn't in employment services. It was in therapy services and community services, and it just became about the numbers. And I think the transition from ADAC funding to NDIS funding, most providers took a huge hit because it was a big transition, but it was ADAC funding was horrible, but it was so much red tape, and a lot of providers took a big hit, and then they had to bring it back, and it was exhausting, and I remember really losing my passion for it because it was just like it became like I once remember having a caseload that I just couldn't handle it. Like I was working ridiculous hours. I mean, I work ridiculous hours here, but it was just too much.
And now instead we've moved to an NDIS system that is there's no red tape. There's
look, there is red tape. There's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of compliance, and so it should be.
Yeah, of course.
You need a lot of compliance, but there's so much good within the NDIS. I've seen people that didn't get the funding on ADAC because it wasn't there, and being able to actually get support services in. And I'm talking like people with severe disabilities, like in wheelchairs, like bedbound, their parents doing absolutely everything for them. And now within the NDIA, they actually have support and they can be independent. It's the best thing that ever happened to Australia.
And it's definitely sort of like, probably in the world, it's one of the better schemes that there is. But, it is, like I think I said earlier, that it's a small few that can ruin the reputation and then put that somewhat red tape, if you want to call it, for other providers. So
Yeah. So we talked at the beginning about the work that we did under the local Navigator, which was about to help employers. Sort of to loop back to that concept, what advice, if any, do you have for potential employers that are listening to us about how to become more inclusive? What do they need to do? What should they do apart from talking to us?
Just hire someone with a disability. No, I think know your resources. Don't be scared. I think a lot of employers or businesses, organisations can be a little bit frightened at the prospect of taking on a person with disability because they think of, I won't have time, I don't have the resources, this is going to cost a lot of money. I would, my advice would be research. There's plenty of organisations that are there to support you. There's plenty of schemes to support you, through job access. You've got disability employment services that can support you taking on a person with disability. There's financial incentives. I would also suggest, if you are wanting to take on, make your workplace accessible. You want to reflect your workplace to your potential customers. So make it accessible, people will come. And then, if they see that you're hiring people with disabilities, more people with disabilities will come. They're.
And why should they? Why should they employ people with disability? I mean,
Why not is the question. I get it. Like, to us, it's so normal. Like, I find it normal. You find it normal. You find it normal. I think, people are scared, but I don't think the question should be why. I think the question is, why aren't you?
Yeah. I think, there shouldn't be a reason to not hire a person with disability. It's, I mean, you can do the whole standard, they're loyal, they're reliable.
They are,
they're this
100%.
and that.
And they're skilled.
And they're skilled. It's like you're going to tap into a pool that you haven't thought of. They're going to give a different perspective. So, if you are in a tourism business, how many millions of people travel that have a disability? They're going to give you valuable insight on how to make your business more accessible to target those
There's way more
visitors.
values.
100% more values. Initially, yes, you may need to have a little bit of patience because everyone learns differently. It's like any new employee. Everyone has a different, unique learning style. So it might take you a day or two or whatever times longer. But once you've got them trained, they are going to be your most loyal, reliable.
They're definitely motivated. So
person. I'll go back to the gentleman my dad hired. He had him for nearly 20 years. It was, it was hard initially for him to pick up because he had a severe intellectual disability. But, once he picked it up, my dad never had to tell him to go do his tasks. He knew what he had to do.
Yeah.
And, the same for the young lady that worked in the commercial laundry. She was exactly the same. She took probably a few months of repetition to get the process right, but she became the most valuable employee. So it's just initially it might take a bit of time, but long term.
Yeah, it's a longer term investment.
The investment far outweighs. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
the return of investment's better.
I mean, if you think about it, you hire the wrong person and you have to make up that time by doing it again and again and again and again and again. So really you're not losing any time. It's just a matter of where you put your time and
I want to
focus.
sort of start thinking of wrapping up because we've been talking for a while, but
Here I am thinking,
at
it's
least
like,
we didn't
5
laugh.
minutes I'm down.
there's
5
probably
minutes.
10
We
minutes of
could-
cuts.
There's probably half an
my
hour
God.
of cuts.
So talking about Program Elevate, how do people get involved? This episode will go to air in a few weeks and you'll be
Maybe
in the
if
thick of
it
it.
doesn't go on the cutting floor.
How do people get in touch? What do they need to do? What's
Visit hoteletico.com.au. All the details are on the website. All the forms and expressions of interest are on the website. Alternatively, you can contact Saraya or myself. My details will be put on the website.
And how long does the program go for an individual that applies?
It's individual based,
Okay.
and that's the whole point of the program. I mean, we sort of a guide is about 6 months, but it could be depending on the person and what their skills are, how much support or training they need. It could be as little as 3 months. It could be 9 months.
But also,
obviously, we are restricted to June 2026.
Also, if you are a supported employment organisation that wants to partner with us, please get in touch.
Yeah, be in touch. Yes, absolutely. Because we can help you and support you. We can't do it. We can't do it by ourselves.
If you haven't heard of me, you'll be hearing from me shortly.
Yeah,
very
we like to stalk people.
Very good.
Yes.
Anything else? Anything else you would like to add?
No, I'm just looking forward to the next year and a half minimum.
Yes.
That's right. So you're not going
getting
anywhere
this-
for the next year and a half.
No.
You're just sticking around.
I think, Hotel Etico will always be part of me, regardless if I'm a full-time employee, part-time employee,
Very good.
volunteer,
Contractor.
contractor.
Volunteer.
I'll be here somewhere.
Volunteer. You want to do it for free?
Oh, my gosh.
It's on the record.
Hey, I'm doing other stuff on volunteering.
Yes,
I
you
can
do.
help. I can help all the other projects and stuff. But look, I'll always be. It's been it's close to my heart. I think since I've read about the
There's nothing
Hotel
like
Etiquette.
it.
No, there isn't. It's quite innovative, and I think. Actually, for all you DES providers that haven't or might be listening, you definitely need to come up here and see how it actually is done. Hold your next conference and managers meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so that's
Absolutely.
right. So up here we've got 15 rooms. You can stay. There's a restaurant. There's a bar.
And that's your call to
there's
action.
meeting rooms. It's the ad, the ad break. But it's a great space in terms of doing those things. So absolutely. And if you're an individual, come and stay.
Absolutely.
Taste.
Mariella, I want to thank you for coming on. I know we had to twist your arm a little bit, but we do appreciate it. And I think it's important to spread the message of what we're doing, and especially this big grant will really make a difference. So
Yes.
we thank you
thank
for all
you.
your hard work and for, always being here.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the invite. And
Thank you, Mariella.
Those aren't as scary as I thought. And,
Well, it's
you
meant
put
to be
me at
scary.
ease.
We're recording this on Halloween night, so...
I was actually going to bring my witch's hat. I'm like, oh, that might be a bit odd.
You know what? Maybe next time
Maybe.
we'll have a dress up party.
With that, thank you, Mariella.
Thank you.
Thank you, Saraya. And let's make room for all.
And keep fighting for inclusion.
Go Etico.
The pink champagne on ice, and she said, we are all just prisoners here of our own device. And in the master's chambers, they gathered for the feast. They stab it with their steely knives, but they just can't kill the beast. Last thing I remember, I was running for the door. Have to find the passage back to the place I was before. Relax, said the night man. We are programmed to receive. You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave.